From an entire continent to a slew of bosses, old school RuneScape has expanded the world of Gielinor a lot over its decade-long life, and I'm here to see all of it. From a fresh main account, we're gonna complete every quest, and fight every boss, and hopefully get rich while doing so. This is Building a Main, Old School Edition. Welcome back to Building a Main. Last episode, we finished up our prep for Slayer by getting a fighter torso, as well as a fat stack of Slayer points for skips and blocks. And today it's time to go over the plan for Slayer. Now, I have two goals in mind when it comes to levels for Slayer. 69 is required for the quest cape, and 75 unlocks the first pretty consistent moneymaker in Gargoyles. However, just setting a level goal and doing tasks normally is kind of boring, I'll be perfectly honest, so we're going to do things a little differently, and we're going to head over to Konar. So, why Konar? Well, the TLDR is that the Brimstone chest exists. Killing mobs while on a Slayer task from Konar causes them to have a chance to drop Brimstone keys, which can open up this Brimstone chest. The average loot of a Brimstone chest is 86k, so it adds quite a bit of value to your tasks. It also changes the value of some Slayer mobs a little bit. The drop rate of Brimstone keys is based on the combat level of the target, and then has a boost if they have a Slayer level. This means some mobs that are otherwise completely undoable in normal Slayer actually have some redeeming qualities when done on a Konar task. Notably, Black Demons have a high combat level, so a high drop rate for keys, and Worms are pretty close to the 100 combat sweet spot and have a Slayer level requirement, so despite being pretty slow XP and not incredible drops themselves, they drop a bunch of keys. The drawback for this reward is that Konar assigns a location as well as a mob to kill. Now, the reason why this is a drawback is because the best case scenario is that Konar assigns a location you would have killed the mob at anyway, or she could assign a worse location. A really good example of this is Jellies, where if you kill them in the catacombs with bursting, it's a really fast task, some good XP, and some reasonable alks. But if you get them in the Fremennik Slayer cave, it's really slow, single targeting them down with melee. What this means is you will sometimes be skipping tasks where the monster assigned is perfectly fine, but the location assigned is terrible. This is why we built up that buffer of Slayer points, because we are 100% gonna need to skip some extra tasks compared to doing Neve Slayer. So that's the plan. Instead of setting a level goal for Slayer, we're instead gonna work on getting 100 Brimstone keys. But first, we gotta take a quick trip to the Chaos Altar in the Wildy. There we go, 70 prayer. And I'd love to say that's piety unlocked. However, there's one other requirement we're missing. We have 68 defense. You need 70 defense to activate piety. So back to Slayer, and we're going to train defense for a bit. Before we dive into the tasks, I want to quickly say that we're going to be live 1 hour after this episode airs over on twitch.tv/CritURS, and we're going to be playing the main, doing some PVM. If you're interested in joining us for some PVM, or just want to chat to us in-game, then we now have a clan, OS Titans, that's open to everyone in the Discord, Twitch stream, or YouTube. Whether you just want to chill and chat, or you want to group up or learn some PVM, whether it's Bandos, TOA, we've got plenty of helpful people and plenty of PVM going on. So if you're interested, that's OS Titans, or you can check out the Discord in the link below. For now, back to the video. First task up is Cow Fights in the Cow Fight Slayer Cave, which is actually a really good task if you just bring a cannon down here. Unfortunately, I didn't have a cannon yet. When cannoning, it's a really great task for XP, otherwise they're not so great. They don't have a Slayer level requirement, and their combat level is pretty low, so they have a relatively low drop rate of keys. So mostly you just cannon this task, get it out of the way, and get as much XP as you can, as quickly as you can. Compared to other locations for this task, it's the same kind of deal. The only other location is the Cow Fight lair, and you also cannon soldiers in there. However, this place has more spawns, so slightly better XP rates. Unsurprisingly, we didn't get any keys from the Cow Fight task, so it was back to Konar for the next one. Fire Giants in the Giant's Den. I have no idea where the Giant's Den is, but Fire Giants sound great. The Giant's Den actually isn't that far from Konar, and the Fire Giants here are slightly higher level than the average Fire Giant, and they also have access to the Catacombs of Karen drop table. so they'll drop stuff like ancient shards and dark totem pieces. Not the best location for fire giants because you can't put a cannon down here like you can in the Karum Slayer dungeon. However, the boosted combat level does help with the key drop rate, so for Konar specifically, that's kind of okay. Unfortunately, not being able to cannon an otherwise cannonable task is a big negative. Other than Slayer, but that's a support skill. Hey, there we go, Brimstone key number 5. The reason why that's key number 5 is because we got 4 keys while Konar point boosting and used that as the start of this collection. Hey, there we go, key number 6. Yeah, I'm more interested in training Slayer in a way that makes money than just going for the best XP rates. In total, we ended up getting 3 keys from this task, which is quite a bit above rate considering it was only a 1% drop rate. That brings our key count up to 7, and now it's back to Konar for the next task. Anku in the Catacombs. I mean, it's not special, but it's fine. Anku's in the Catacombs isn't actually a bad task, because I think you can actually burst these ones, and you only get 50 of them, so that would be a super quick task for some nice points, and they're pretty close to that 100 combat level sweet spot for key drop rate. The only thing really to note from this task is that we almost got 60 Slayer. That's a good task. I can't deny. It's a good task. Oh, there it is, another key. That is key number 8 now. This cow fight task went a bit better than the first one, and we ended up getting 2 keys instead of 0. Anku in the Catacombs again. Nice easy one. Okay, that's task number 57 done. 512 tasks done now. 512 points even. Which means we can now pick up the Slayer Helm and still have enough points to ban a task. Which is really nice. 127 Calphite in the Calphite Lair. Now time for the painful part. Investing in new gear. We've picked up full Guffins and a full cannon. So the idea with this gear is that Guffins can be a nice swap to heal ourselves and save on supplies. So for those who don't know, Guffin's full set effect is to have a chance to heal you whenever you hit. The only downside is that we are now kinda broke. I have a grand total of like 79k. However, our loot tab does have over 1 mil in it, so I'm only really holding the keys. I'm not really holding a loot tab. I don't really have the luxury to hoard a loot tab currently. So let's sell this off and rebuild our cash stack a bit. There we go, back up to a 1 mil plus cash stack. Generally, I want to keep about 1 mil on hand just to pay for stuff like supplies, stuff like prayer potions we're going through quite quickly with Slayer now. We've obviously got combat potions to buy. And now we have to also pay for some cannonballs for some tasks. So our supply costs are definitely keeping up there. Stuff like keeping up with our herb runs, our treehouse runs, just liquidating our loot tab every so often will keep us afloat until we get those 100 brimstone keys. And then I'm hoping that just selling off all of what we get from those brimstone keys is going to kind of propel us into having a bit of a setup to start looking at our first real boss. Now for a task where the location really punished us. Bloodvelds are a really solid task if you do them in locations where you can cannon them. Especially if you have the Mayaditch laboratories unlocked and you can cannon mutated Bloodvelds. Unfortunately, I do not. And also I am locked to the Slayer Tower here, which is a really slow place to do Bloodvelds. And to top it off, they aren't particularly high combat level, so not that much chance of a key, even though they do have a Slayer level requirement. Okay, Konar, good task. Black demons in the Catacombs. Yes, I will take that. Under normal circumstances, black demons are a block. However, their combat level makes them really good droppers of brimstone keys, and my desire to train ranged means that they're actually a pretty decent task for me right now. And to prove my point, this Black Demon task gave us 5 brimstone keys, putting us up to a total of 14. Time to engage in our first bit of flipping on the account. We're doing beer glasses because currently there's a huge mass going on at Sorceress's Garden, and we're currently getting almost 100 GP margin on beer glasses, and they've got a buy limit of like 10k.
I could make the margin a bit bigger per beer glass, but I don't actually have the cash stack to do the full buy limit in an evening. So what I'm doing is I'm doing small chunks of the buy limit with a small margin and just making as much money as I can as quickly as possible. So you can see here, I'm making about 90 GP a beer glass, which is solid. At 10k beer glasses, 90 GP a beer glass, we're making about 900k off this buy limit. And we could do it again in 4 hours if the mess is still going on. Key number 16. 2 keys from a low-level fire giant task. We'll take that. I feel so far away from 100 keys, I'm not gonna lie. But it's making me not think about this. About Slayer XP. Which is bad for my XP rates, but good for my mental. Like I'm gonna hit 100 keys and I'm just gonna have a Slayer level. 155 Black Demons in the Tavali dungeon. Time to get to range training. There we go. First key of the task. We should be getting plenty off a Black Demon task. Hellhounds in the Tavali dungeon. Don't mind if I do. Gonna cannon those again.
Unfortunately, despite being able to cannon in the Tavali dungeon, most of the hellhounds in the area will actually move away from you instead of come towards you when shot by your cannon. The most I was ever really able to get to move towards me was like 3, which is really bad for the spawn times here, which meant I ended up running around after them a lot, and it wasn't that chill.
Hey, there we go. Another brimstone key. Hellhounds have a stupidly high combat level for how weak they actually are. Brimstone key number 19. Key 21. Key number 22. This task is actually given. Like, if each of these keys is like 80k average loot, this task's given 400k. Greater demons in the chasm of fire. Delicious.
The reason why Greater Demons in the Chasm of Fire are so nice is because of this cannon's safe spot. If you stand here, you can reload your cannon and you will never get hit by any of the Greater Demons, and the way cannons work in single target areas is if a mob doesn't hit you, it doesn't count as it being in combat with you, so the cannon will just continue to shoot every demon around you. Basically as if it was a multi-combat area. And on this task, we picked up one more key, which considering these guys have a sub 1% drop rate for keys, is perfectly reasonable.
170 hellhounds in the Stronghold Slayer dungeon. Okay, let's go. I'm gonna need more cannonballs.
Once again, our key drops are almost perfectly on rate, and we picked up 2 more keys from almost 200 hellhounds. So if I try to document every single key that we get, considering we're not even up to 30 keys yet, this is going to turn into a feature-length film instead of a YouTube video. So what we're going to do is we're going to skip over all of the like super common, just standard casts, stuff like demons, hellhounds, and we'll go over tasks when they're new to us. That way this video might actually have time for the opening of the chests. And what a perfect task to talk about. Lizardmen Shamans. So before we take our crack at learning Lizardman Shamans, I first need to get 70 smithing, or at least 65 with a stew boost. This is because I want to complete the hard Corendon Kebos diary so that our Slayer helm counts as a Shazian helm 5 for fighting the shamans. In order to get up to 60, we're going to be making mithril darts. This is just a nice profitable way of doing smithing. And since from 60 to 65, I'm probably going to do blast furnace gold bars, that's going to cost me quite a bit. So making a little bit of profit now to offset that seems like a good plan. I think I may have been slightly off. There we go, 70 smithing. We also needed to pick up a Xerix talisman for the hard diary, so we went and cannoned some smaller lizardmen. We also needed to max out all of our favour in Corend, so we finished off Shazian by getting our Shazian armor 5 that we also need for the Lizardmen Shamans. Then for Lovakenge, we made and delivered a bunch of armor for them because I was not spending more time in that mine, and finished it off by setting up their minecart system. And finally, we dug up worms for Piscarilius. Another requirement for the hard diary is to complete Dream Mentor, so we went and completed both Lunar Diplomacy and Dream Mentor. So then we went and completed the Hard Korend and Kebos diary. Again, the main reason being that it allows a Slayer helm to act as a Shazian helm 5, allowing you to get the Slayer helm boost against Lizardman Shaman, since you need to wear full Shazian armor 5 for that. So, with that in mind, we went and unlocked the ability to make Slayer helms, because I was saving that until we actually got a task where we needed a Slayer helm, and then we crafted it and got to work. Apologies for using a stream clip here, I forgot to take a local recording this day. So shamans are actually quite a chill task, because if you hug a south wall or a west wall, then they actually can't jump to you, so all you have to deal with is dodging the purple little guys that run at you, and just praying range. That's literally it. If you're not interested in cannoning them, then Mulk is actually a pretty nice place to do Lizardman Shamans, because the room is so small, so you don't actually get outranged with the blowpipe. And in total, we picked up 4 keys off of these guys. Unfortunately, no Dragon Warhammer, but that thing's like a 1 in 5k, so no surprise there. Ooh, we got a worms task. What do I kill worms with? I know that they're weak to stab, but are they so weak to stab that I should use something that isn't my whip? For now, I just killed the worms with my whip. However, later on I did pick up an abyssal dagger to use on them, because they are quite a bit weaker to stab than any other style. And they're also one of the best positioned Slayer mobs for key drop rate. With a combat level of 99, they are almost perfectly on that level 100 combat sweet spot, whilst also having a Slayer level requirement for the 20% boost. So over the course of this grind, we did a lot of worm tasks, and they provided a lot of keys. One task I would have loved to see more of during this grind was Aberrant Spectres. We saw this a couple times, but definitely not enough. They drop a bunch of alcohols, a bunch of herbs, so they just make good money by default. That pays for all the cannonballs, all the prayer potions, and they have a pretty reasonable combat level and a Slayer level requirement, so they have a similar drop rate to worms for keys. The only downside is that if you get them in the Slayer Tower, you can't cannon them, but honestly they're so good money that I'm not even too fussed about that. And as we continue to unlock all the 50 plus Slayer level monsters, we're on to a task of Turoffs, which is kind of hard to pin down the drop rate for keys, because there's many different types of Turoff here, and they all have different combat levels. However, they're all pretty low combat level, so I'd say the key drop rate, even though they do have a Slayer level requirement, is pretty low. You can only single target these in the Fremennik Slayer Cave, however, it allows us to use the Leaf-Bladed Battle Axe, which gets a damage amp against Turoffs, I believe, and it allows us to train Strength, which the Whip does not. So that slightly makes up for not being able to cannon them. Our best key dropper throughout this grind actually ended up being Hellhounds, and this is the best place to kill Hellhounds. In the Stronghold Slayer dungeon, you can both cannon them, and they have reasonable spawn times. So even though there's only 3 spawns, you actually stay in combat pretty consistently. And in total, these guys gave us 16 of our keys. Another great key dropper were the warped jellies in the Catacombs of Korend. Specifically, these jellies, because the ones in the Fremennik Slayer Cave kind of suck. These guys were one of our chosen burst tasks, and you do need to wear some actual magic gear for this because they have a mage level. However, they ended up dropping us 12 keys as well as a bunch of alcohols. I would have loved to see this task more. And on the note of burst tasks, we can't not mention Dust Devils. Getting these either in the Smoke Dungeon or in the Catacombs allows you to burst them, which is great, and the ones in the Catacombs are also level 110, as well as having the Slayer level requirement, giving them a really nice key drop rate. And another task I would have loved to see more of is Kurasks. With a combat level of 106 and a Slayer level requirement, they drop a great number of keys, and their other loot is also fantastic. That, combined with the fact that it's one of the only tasks we can train Strength on, it's very, very nice, even though they're not cannonable. Oh. There we go. Key number 100. Let's go. Oh, that took a singular kill. Well, time to open 100 keys. That is a Slayer grind. Done. I got a lot of keys on the first kills of tasks. I don't know if that actually means anything, but just a weird coincidence. Okay, time to send 100 brimstone keys. At the time of recording, the average value of a brimstone chest was 86k, so we were looking for about 8.6 mil in loot from this. There was a chance we got more, there was a chance we got less. There was also a chance we rolled a piece of the Dusk Mystic Robe set, however that stuff is insanely rare. So once we opened up 100 brimstone keys, our loot looks something like this. 8.27 mil. Those were our best rolls. Just under average. We started out real strong. So now I got to get to the G and sell this off, and we're going to be looking at a lovely cash deck. So the loot tab was never able to track how much the keys were because they had a G value of 0, and this does not use ALC prices. Also, my loop to FAF ratio, absolutely terrible. So we got 6 mil in this loot tab, in addition to the 8.2 mil here. So we're sitting on like 14 mil once we sell all this off. That is so much money to work with. Also, some runes here, like blood and soul runes. We've got like a mil total of those now. I don't know how much of that came from loot, but yeah, that puts us up to 15 mil. In terms of supply costs, I would be surprised if we didn't spend about, 8 mil or so on supplies over the course of this. I definitely was a few times that I dropped nearly a mil on prayer pots. For those curious, this grind ended up getting us up to 75 Slayer, which is kind of ironic because that was my higher end goal of getting to gargoyles. So that's a nice little moneymaker we've now got unlocked. But let's be real, most of you are interested in seeing that fat cash deck. Well, after selling out our entire loot tab and everything we got from those brimstone keys, we are sitting comfortably at a cash stack of 14.2 mil. Now there's a few extra things we could sell, but honestly I don't even know what I'm going to spend 14 mil on. Which means if you want to know what we spent it on, you're going to have to join us next episode. And if you can't wait for next episode, then we're going to be live 1 hour after this episode airs over on twitch.tv/CritURS, playing the main live, doing some PVM. So if you want to come see how the main's doing now that we're done with leagues, join us there. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, you know what to do. And I'll catch you again next time where we're going to be spending that money and diving in to our first real bosses.